All across Europe, wolves have been persecuted, thinning their numbers to the point of even becoming locally extinct in many places. But luckily they are re-establishing themselves back into their native ranges, bringing with them some much-needed stability to the local ecosystems. These wolves have been able to spread all the way back to places like Belgium and France. If it weren't for the channel, wolves and other bringers of biodiversity would be able to return naturally to our shores in the UK. This January I embarked on a journey to the Eastern European country of Slovakia, a nation with a complex and interesting history and outstanding natural beauty. My personal goal was to witness firsthand the environment in which wolves and other predators live in Europe, as I am a massive advocate for the reintroduction of such species in the UK. I chose to do this by volunteering with the Carpathian Wolf Watch, getting down to the ground to learn how to track a variety of wildlife and how ecologists help protect these animals in situ. I was lucky enough to get an interview with the founder of the organisation, zoologist and expert wolf tracker, Rigg.
So I'm Rigg. I'm a British guy, moved to Slovakia in mid-90s, set up the Slovak Wildlife Society, of which I'm the chairman and a zoologist, and we run various programs mainly focused on large carnivores. Slovak Wildlife Society, initially it was a kind of club or society, UK-based, but with a focus on Slovakia. So that was since 1998. But then we registered as an association of citizens, so a Slovak organization, in 1994.
The organization, what is it you do or you go out and do in the field?
Mm-hmm. Well, it has changed over time, but currently what we're working on at the moment is a project called Carpathian Wolf Watch, which is focused on wolves, specifically trying to find out more about the status of wolves in Slovakia. There has been historically a big controversy, disagreement between nature conservationists who felt that wolves were endangered, threatened by overhunting, and hunters themselves who thought there were plenty of wolves, and they were causing damage to livestock and competing with hunters for game species like red deer and so on. So both sides had completely different views, completely different estimates of how many wolves there were. So the main motivation for our project initially was to better determine how many wolves there are. What is the status of the population in Slovakia?
And why is it important to protect these species?
Well, wolf as a keystone species is believed to have a vital role in many ecosystems in Europe and elsewhere. So by preying on species such as red deer, wild boar and so on, typically they're limiting the numbers of browsers or grazers which would otherwise cause damage to vegetation. And usually wolves are only able to catch weaker individuals, so therefore there's a evolutionary benefit for those prey species, actually. I mean, for the individuals that they're killing and eating, obviously it's not a benefit, but for the species overall, it's weeding out the weaker individuals or the diseased ones or ones with excessive parasite loads and so on.
What have you found since you've started your project?
Yeah, well, the main result, I would say, are better estimates of the numbers, which was the original goal. So when we began with the project, which was 2010, so some of the environmental NGOs were saying that the annual wolf hunting season was essentially decimating the population and that they feared that there were fewer than 130 wolves left after the winter hunting season, whereas the official hunting figures compiled by hunters to estimate how many wolves there were more like 2,000 wolves, so way more.
It's a big difference.
It's a huge difference, yeah. So our scientifically based methods, using genetic analysis, were able to come up with more robust figures. So the estimate for the area in which we work, which is called Lipto, is an area of around about 2,000 square kilometers, and the number of wolves estimated using those scientific methods is around around 50 individuals in that area. 45 when we started, and we've seen some increase over time during the project. It's now probably around 60 individuals. So if we then extrapolate from that area to the national level, which is not quite such a precise estimate, but it gives us a better idea than there was previously of how many wolves there are. It would currently be around about 600 wolves in Slovakia.
It's a far cry from what the hunters have suggested in the past.
Yes, that's right. But on the other hand, if we were being fair and balanced, the situation is not so bad as some of those environmental NGOs had feared.
So, being in this environment, obviously there's the aforementioned wolves, there's also Eurasian lynx and Eurasian brown bear, and a lot of the large herbivores and other prey species like wild boar. Do you ever feel like this is a dangerous job? Have you ever felt worried whilst out and about?
Wolves only really in the beginning, when I wasn't so familiar with them. There are so many myths and legends and fairy tales about wolves. It's hard not to be influenced by that. And when you're out in the forest on your own, as I often was, and still am very often, the first couple of times I came into really close contact with wolves, and it was just me in the winter landscape. And I suppose under the influence of tales like Little Red Riding Hood and so on, there was a kind of, I wonder what's going to happen next. But once I had that experience and was confident that they weren't going to cause me any harm, then you can just sort of get on with doing things and enjoy being in areas where they are. With bears, it's a little bit different. They do cause injuries to people basically every year in Slovakia. It's a very tiny proportion of the people who are recreating or living or working in the mountains, in the forest, but there are a few injuries each year. So, and in certain circumstances, so you do need to be a little bit more aware of bears, I would say, and take steps to not get into critical situations. But overall, you're much more likely to get into trouble on the way to the mountains, statistically, be involved in a traffic accident or in the mountains have a fall or even get hit by lightning or those other things. The chances of you being injured by an animal are really very small. Even being bitten by a dog is more likely than being hurt by a wild animal.
Makes absolute sense. Where do you see yourself and the organisation in, say, 5 years? What's the future for White Wilderness?
Yeah, well, just recently there's been a big change. Over the last several years, or during the course of our project, there was gradual change in terms of an easing of the hunting pressure for a number of different reasons. One of which I would say is the improved estimates that we were able to generate. That had some influence on setting the hunting quotas. Also, there were complaints made to the European Commission by NGOs and even government organizations in neighboring states that the hunting pressure in Slovakia was very high, and at the same time there wasn't enough information of what the status of the population was. So the Commission put pressure on Slovakia to address that, basically to not hunt so much. So over the years we've seen the quota come down, and also that more restrictions on the method and places and times that hunters were allowed to hunt wolves have been tightened up, so their success in hunting also dropped. But in this last winter now, for the first time, no hunting quota of wolves was set at all in Slovakia. And this was more or less imposed by the Environment Ministry, we could say, whereas the previous changes were more consensual from the hunters' side. There may not have been always enthusiasm about the changes, we can say, but they more or less went along with it, whereas this dropped now to no hunting at all. It was a bit more of an imposition on them, I would say, rather than persuading them and agreeing together. So I think it's now very important to see what influence that has on the situation. Will it result in a backlash against wolves? Will we see an increase in poaching of wolves? That legal hunting is no longer allowed? Or on the other hand, will we see a real big increase in wolf numbers because the hunting pressure has been taken away? So it'll be very important to follow that and see what happens.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Robin. It's been a pleasure interviewing you, and I hope to see more successful things from you guys in the future.
Thank you.
If you would like to support or learn more about the work done by the Carpathian Wolf Watch, please follow the links down in the description below. A special thanks to Robin and the team and everyone volunteering with them for their assistance in making this video, as well as the vital work they do to protect one of the world's most enrapturing animals. Until next time, thank you for watching.